Welcome, everybody, to the Techmeme Ride Home Experience for June 9th, 2022. This is the week of WWDC. And so Brian and I are going to start there. And then we're going to have a special guest later on in the show to talk about a new raise in the NFT space. Okay, with that, so Brian, you just mentioned that it sounds like I'm a mile away or at least a foot away from my mic, but I'm actually very close to it. I think the difference is that I'm now recording from a shed in my backyard next to the house that I just purchased.
Hey, congratulations.
So, thank you. I am now a homeowner, which is a terrifying idea because now I'm on the hook for 30 years to pay back this massive loan that I just took out. But, I feel like I finally have grown up enough to commit to something. And that's the first thing.
I'm not trying to blow up your spot that much, but in the Oakland area, the Bay Area.
Yes. Yeah. Oakland. Just outside of Berkeley, actually, next to Berkeley.
Well, congratulations. As I think we've discussed before, that's something that I've not been brave enough to do since
the last time?
2008, maybe I sold my house. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. And as I said to you, I was the definition of, when I bought my house in 2005, I was the definition of a subprime loan taker. Yeah. I believe I didn't put anything down. Not a dollar down.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow. I mean, that blows my mind, having gone through what I just went through.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a deal like that. Like, what an amazing deal. But also, oh my God, no wonder there was the whole, housing crisis.
Yeah. Well,
anyways, your wife was very helpful in helping us to ask all the right questions. I did the whole process without a realtor. And so I had to become kind of a, what's it called? Like a novice amateur realtor, which probably isn't a thing. But the whole process took a month, man. A month. It was fast.
Did you, I know this is totally off topic, but was it competitive? Were there other people outbidding you and stuff like that, like you hear these days?
No. So, I got to say, this house, it's an amazing house. And we found it actually before it went on the market. And so my partner Joe saw it, and it was on Craigslist. And I guess it had been rented previously. And so the owners, they just were over it. They didn't want to rent anymore. They wanted to sell it, also given market dynamics or whatever. And so we actually reached out before it went on the market, and we liked the seller. The seller was also the lister. And so that actually made things simpler because he was also our fiduciary in the process. Anyways, we don't have to get into the details, but I learned a lot in this process, more than I thought I ever would know. And it was a lot easier ultimately than I expected. I always thought that buying a house would take 6 months or 6 years, or just I would be out there for a long time, having exactly the kind of bidding war process that you described. But once we got going, we were just no, this is the house. Let's do it. So that's what happened.
Well, I give you credit for repping Web 2.0 by finding it on Craigslist, though. So,
It's like Web 1.5.
Craig Newmark is somebody that I've never had for the Internet History Podcast that has always been there. I've had the opportunity to talk to him. Yes, right.
I met him, and he used to reply to my tweets, and I sent him an email about something, and he is not available.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Is it's sort of been there in the background in the past, but it's not easy to put together, and especially now, I feel like he does not give. There's no more F's for him to give. So
yeah, he's fine.
Yeah,
he's done.
Yeah.
He's got bigger fish to fry.
One of these days, maybe we'll do that. But
so
yeah, go on.
News of the week.
Yeah, well, it was dub, as they say. Mm-hmm. Before I hit some of the things that I thought were interesting from Dub. Did you watch it? What were your impressions, just generally?
Yeah, so I actually rewatched it, or I was sort of watching on Twitter and other places the day of on Tuesday, and then last night I made myself a nice martini and watched it on 2x speed to get through it. And I'm glad I watched it at that rate because it was, it wasn't a showstopper. There's a bunch of like interesting, good stuff in there. You can tell this is sort of like almost like a in the middle year between maybe big update cycles. There was no car. There were still no augmented reality glasses. It's still very much focused on the legacy of the conventional desktop and tablet and phone form factor, and that's what we're sticking with for a little while longer. Still getting more juice out of that M2 chip, and so in that sense, it was fine.
Well,
I wasn't like blown away like I've been recently.
Really? Well, you asked me that offline, and I gave you a 6 out of 10. I feel like there's been other Apple events that I was more underwhelmed by, but for sure, not doing. I don't know what's the term that it's not AROS or something like that. This would have been, in theory, a good time to get developers ready for this. So it is interesting to me that they didn't at least do a one more thing. I'm not saying that they would have brought the headset out, but you could have prepped developers for what is coming, especially because we have heard a lot behind the scenes that, they're working I don't know did I do the story about how Jon Favreau has apparently been tasked with creating some sort of content for this sort of thing? This would
Jon Favreau, the offline guy?
No, the guy that does all the Star Wars stuff, the Swingers guy.
That Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
There's two of them. Okay.
There is two Jon Favreaus. That is very pertinent. You're right. Anyway, there's a lot of fire or smoke there that says that there's fire in the background. So
it's definitely happening.
For sure.
iOS thing is, it's there. They're clearly working on it. I wonder if it's supply chain, if it's the readiness of the hardware, if it's
that's what I'm saying is that I don't know if we should read anything into the fact that they didn't use this as a little tee up thing. As I said on the show, when they do announce it, I'm pretty sure in the same way that the watch was the last new product line that they did, and they would probably maybe do its own event for a new product line. But still, this is more than the watch for sure. This would be a product that you'd want to prep developers for.
I mean, the thing is, it needs to, however they bring it out, both the car and the glasses, they need to actually kind of present the narrative and the story in a way that kind of deviates or sort of breaks from, I think, a lot of the, conventional use cases and expectations, right? I mean, more and more, it seems like Oculus and VR are becoming, enterprise products. That's where there's product market fit. Whereas for end users, there's games, but it's trying to be social, but it's not quite there. And I think Apple really wants whatever product they put out there to be something that you would wear in the real world. That, whether it's being together with other people and having shared experiences, there was, if you listen to the language in a lot of the WW sessions, which you can get in the Apple developer app, they talk a lot about, co-presence and being around other people and, active consumption versus passive consumption. So there's a whole language around the experience design of these products. And I think Apple is starting to tee those ideas up. And for whatever event they do that releases the glasses, I don't think it can be a one more thing, a tag on. It's got to be here's the future of computing as we see it, and here's how you participate in it. And in this future, there will be continuous authentication, so the passkey thing is kind of relevant and interesting. In this world, you'll be authenticated once, and through your biometrics, we'll know who you are, and you'll just be able to interact with, a world around you. I talked about this conspiracy theory months ago, but
right. Put a pin in that real quick. Put a pin in that real quick, because I'll come back to it in a second. But as I tried to mention in the show, stuff that they're doing with maps, stuff that they're doing with the dictation stuff, which they, think about it. Why would they spend a lot of time talking about dictation and things like that? Well, because what's the interface going to be if you're wearing something on your face?
The keyboard has to go away. Right? Yeah. And Siri was supposed to be kind of the partner in that process. Siri didn't really get any mentions. They talked about Spotlight as, their search engine. And that's something that I think is very important for their advertising model, on desktop. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot.
Except for the fact that you can see, as I said, some of the things they're teeing up, sort of training users to expect certain apps to work a certain way, which they would want them to work in an AR environment.
Do you have a specific example?
Sort of the translation dictation thing, the maps multi-stop routing thing, even this is maybe too much Kremlinology, but even the fact that Siri hasn't, people have made this point for years now that Siri hasn't had a major upgrade. When they come out with the AR thing, I think you're going to see Siri have a friggin' generational change in things that it can do and stuff like that.
Well, actually, to that point, one of the things that I was paying close attention to is their new shared with you API. And they also have essentially activity streams and activity feeds built into a number of the products across Ventura, and it's Ventura, right? iOS 16.
Yeah.
And you can see the contours of the Apple social network becoming much clearer. And it's very interesting the way that they're doing this because it's so under the radar and it's very much focused on kind of small group sharing and collaboration. And that seems, I'm not going to go too out on a limb here, but relative to all the complaints about, Facebook being a monopoly, this is a very clear example of how Apple can disrupt and interrupt Facebook's relationship to its customers, obviously Meta. But in the sense that if Apple builds that social network, and the social network is based in your contacts, in your address book, and then you can share or collaborate with people in all of Apple's apps, and that those collaboration features are being rolled out and made available to developers, you're going to be using people in your contacts, in your address book, to connect and to network, and you're going to obviate the need for any third-party social network. So I find those APIs to be very, very important and very relevant, especially because when it comes to Siri, you can use those activity streams to understand who you're interacting with to improve the social graph that will live ultimately in your address book.
This is a joke that 3 people will get, but you cowards, you should have named it Ventura Highway, a la the America song from the 70s.
People got that.
Yeah. What's the thing I just told you to put a pin in?
Oh no, I forgot.
Yeah, we both did forget. Okay, all right. Let's do a quick thing. What did you think of the MacBook Air? Which I will say, for my part, again, they're discontinuing support for people like me that sat on the last 2015, 2016 MacBooks that we held on to because they screwed up MacBooks for so long. So eventually I'll have to get that MacBook Air, but I like the design. I like the M2 chip. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I'm still wondering is ultimately, and I think this is a big question, what are desktop apps? What are iOS mobile apps?
Yeah.
The form factor, obviously, of the Air is becoming closer and closer to a kind of,
it looks like
the keyboard.
It looks like a sandwich of 2 iPad Airs at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the future of the Mac and the future of iOS devices and iPadOS, it's still, obviously, they're targeting those things at different, sort of price points and tiers and different use cases. But in terms of the software that runs within it, it seems like there's a coalescing that's happening that feels just, I don't know, it makes me a little nervous. So the hardware is great.
Wait, the multitasking makes you nervous? What do you mean it makes you nervous?
Yeah, like the Stage Manager, right? So now you have this way of managing apps in sort of this preview style tab system on the left-hand side, and then you've also got the dock. Like those two things don't make sense to sort of coexist. I mean, I'm sure they do kind of make sense, but not really. Not in sort of like the Apple way, where it's sort of like this is the one way to, create this functionality for you.
We're talking about Mac OS, right? Because on the Mac
OS.
Well, okay, on the Mac OS side, like, Spaces is still their greatest innovation, and yet they can't help themselves. There's like 5 different ways to do like Spaces.
Expose.
Right.
Yeah, there's mission control.
Yeah.
There's all these different ways of like doing your app switching and managing windowing.
Right.
Which, once you have multiple displays, it makes sense.
Well, so on the iPad OS thing, which is, I think, what you were talking about, the multitasking and things like this, like, everyone's like, Mac OS is moving towards iPad, moving towards iPad OS. But at this point, like, if you can do overlapping windows, which is a funny thing to say, oh, this is an innovation, you can overlap windows. But I mean, why are we still pretending the hardware is the same? Like, let's just like the fact that at this point, iPad OS and Mac OS should just be identical, and the fact that they're still keeping hands tied behind backs is, I don't know, annoying.
That's a little bit what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think I'm personally apprehensive about that future because I do so much work on my Mac, and I love my Mac, and I love Mac OS. And so moving over to a mostly mobile-based platform, like freaks me out. I remember like the reason why I was actually very scared to move from Windows to Mac, like 2002. I don't know. It was a long time ago. Was my sense that I would lose control of like the system internals and access to like, configuration files and all this stuff that over time ultimately I should not be touching. I'm not a developer. Let's be clear. And so making that stuff more and more opaque and harder to access actually is probably better for users, better for support, simplifying the overall experience, lowering support costs.
And by the way, listeners, we will get to talk about my Mac Studio experience. We're not going to do it now, but
yes,
I'm with you in the sense of like, that was always my fear of, listen, I'm a command line kid, so
yeah, right.
Going
There's no Alfred. There is Alfred on iOS, but it's not very good. It's a remote app.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Terminal is still there and things like that, but the thing is I love the people that are like, I'm going to make the iPad be my daily driver, is my main device and things like that. And at this point, when people would talk about that 4 or 5 years ago, it was sort of like, oh, you're a brave pioneer and stuff like that. But at this point, it's just kind of annoying that you can't do the same thing on an iPad. You know what's annoying about it? I did the story today about the Dell XPS and things like that. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that a MacBook Air is not a detachable device. Mm-hmm. We should be there, and because they're going to do it eventually. It's just one of those things.
You get that already with the iPad. An
iPad right.
So, anyways. Whether there's going to be a cohering of these different product lines over time, I imagine in 2 to 3 years, perhaps. But maybe by that point we'll be wearing glasses, and it won't be
there's that. Or it's one of those things where you wear glasses and you sit in front of a wall, and then you type on your desk in front of you because it's all AR, put up and
a friend of mine actually worked on that. Okay, I have a few more things, that are a little bit adjacent to this before we bring on a guest that I thought were interesting. So one of the big things, one last thing that I want to say about the Apple Social Network is just the sort of, awareness, or again, this is like a little conspiracy, but, we talked about the whole CSAM debacle many, many months ago, which was, of course, when Apple put out a plan to scan everyone's phone for child pornography. And if it found it, then it would be, essentially they would look at signatures of content on your device before you were uploading it to iCloud. And if it was, if there was a hit or a certain number of hits, then eventually that could be reported to the authorities. And what we saw in WWDC was the product in which that feature would have been used, which was the iCloud shared photo libraries. So I thought it was the interesting sort of culmination of that story, which of course died down months ago because, Apple theoretically moved on, or did they not? I don't really know if they're not doing it.
Yeah, that's unclear to me too.
Know if they are.
Yeah. I don't have an answer to that because it is one of those things that got sort of muddled where maybe they backed away. Yeah, it kept evolving in terms of what their response to it was. But
so that was one thing. The last thing that I wanted to point out was that Apple is moving forward with this Apple Pay Later service. And this is, I think, a really big deal. Like, if Apple's going to become a bank, again, they're not going to call themselves a bank, but they're going to act and provide, the job to be done that a bank does, which is to allow people to buy Apple products in installments that are likely going to be managed through whether it's the Apple Card or some Apple Finance.
The big deal is it's not Apple products. It is anything that you do with it. If you're buying it with Apple Pay, if I went right now and bought a Jackery battery with Apple Pay, they could split it into 4 payments for me.
Do you own any Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or other cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency might represent the future of money. It's one of the most exciting investment opportunities to come around for some time. But what about taxes? With an Alto Crypto IRA, you can trade crypto like Bitcoin and avoid or defer the taxes. After getting my first tax bill from crypto trading ever last year, I signed up for an Alto Crypto IRA account. And it's great. I love it. Alto's Crypto IRA is the easy way to get crypto into an IRA. Trade all you want without the tax headache. Create an account in just a few minutes. Invest with as little as $10. There are no setup charges and no account fees. You get secure trading 24/7 through Alto's integration with Coinbase. It's almost exactly like using Coinbase. Almost everything you can trade on Coinbase, you can trade on Alto IRA. There are 150 plus coins available, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano, ready to take your investments to the next level and diversify like the pros and trade without tax headaches. Open an Alto Crypto IRA with as little as $10. Go to altoira.com/techmeme. That's ALTOIRA.com/techmeme. Start investing in cryptocurrency today. Go to altoira.com/techmeme. Have you ever worked with a big ad agency? What was that experience like? Probably not good, right? Long wait times, numerous revisions. I'm sure it was more expensive than you were hoping for. Well, let me introduce you to the alternative. Superside. Superside is your one-stop shop for good design. Superside is a unique design subscription service that combines top designers from around the world with purpose-built technology and the rigor of design ops to deliver a game-changing experience for you. Superside is 20 times faster than hiring an in-house team. Costs are lower by up to 50%, and you can ship your designs 70% faster. Easily scale your design output with an elastic, dedicated team of top designers and project managers. Add adequate capacity during busy times and big projects without increasing headcount. Subscription plans start at $3,000 a month. All plans include dedicated design teams with a full range of capabilities, project managers who serve as single points of contact, same-day turnarounds when needed, and of course, access to their purpose-built tech. Get more than $3,000 of free credit on annual plans, and listeners get 1 month free on any plan when you sign yearly. Go to superside.com/techmeme to get 1 month free when signing yearly. Superside.com/techmeme.
Right. But I want to unpack that a little bit, right? So there's a couple things going on. The fact that Apple is getting into more and more of the financial services, the fact that they're doing more with biometrics and identity, they can rate your fraud risk very accurately based on all the data that they have about you from
right.
how you use your device.
Which is what I said today, right?
Right. So they lower their threat profile in terms of who they're offering these services to, because they are the ones that are actually doing all the biometric authentication. So that puts them in this amazing position to rejigger the whole way in which I think we relate to money and financial services. Imagine getting, I don't know if I want to say like Mint style services, but think about what Apple has done with Apple Health and the Apple Watch, and think about doing the same thing to money. The types of services that Apple could provide of financialization is a whole rich area that really not a lot of companies has mined. Like Microsoft makes a money product, but it's not like a good consumer app where there are, family services, like where your literal, like your family members are in there. So the fact that Apple is doing that, I think, is very interesting. And again, my conspiracy hat was like, what if this is the thing that Apple needs to do to make the Apple Car affordable? So you can essentially get a loan for the Apple Car in your iOS device or whatever. And this will be the thing that allows you to actually obtain one of the most expensive Apple products that will probably ever be released. And the reason why I think this is because Tesla is already offering loans through their app. So it's just a matter of time before Apple might do the same thing with these new financial services.
Right. And so, number one, everyone thinks for years Apple focusing on privacy and shivving everybody else in terms of ATT, and we're not going to allow other people to surveil you. Well, that's good PR, that's good branding for Apple and things like that. But if they're thinking 7-dimensional chess wise, a decade down the road,
like being in that Apple ecosystem and having all the money stuff just kind of be taken care of your kind of, Apple One membership or whatever. It's very compelling from a business, case.
And the point being that, as I said today, they're never going to trumpet the fact that, they know, in the same way that Amazon knows what I buy and then things like that. Like,
we'll just lead with benefit.
Right. They're going to know too. They're going to know where you go. They're going to know if with the Apple Car. And by the way, they'll know where you go if you're wearing their glasses on your face and
all of it. Any Apple device, right?
Yeah.
So they have so much useful information to evaluate, the risk profile of users. I mean, I remember, at Uber, one of our biggest expenses was the fact that there was so much fraud on the platform. And of course, trying to get access to that information on the phone, is challenging. And so people can create new accounts and they can, spin up lots of other devices. But Apple has a very different advantage in terms of just the relationship to those accounts and to those devices, to your Apple ID, moving forward with biometrics, this passkey thing. Anyways, again, lots of sort of conspiracy thinking. But if you project out a couple of years, this puts Apple in a very different place with regards to having a relationship with users. And if they get used to these installment payment services, you can see how that comfort, that familiarity would allow people to take out a much larger purchase for something down the road.
And allow Apple to do it in a way that is, they'll have more information than a Goldman Sachs, than a Bank of America, because they have that data directly from you.
Apple wants to sell the car and not just, make it something that is a, service that's self-driving and it picks you up and drives you around. But anyways, I can see it going both ways.
Well, speaking of experiences at Uber, I believe that's what you're leading to.
Well, yes. All right, everybody. So I would like to welcome up Chris Mattern, who is now the CEO, co-founder of Floor NFT, has a big announcement today. And Chris is someone who I followed for a long time. Actually, when I was at Uber, we worked together on, I believe, implementing, because I was on the developer platform, the ability to request a ride through Chris's platform, which was called Button. And Chris previously actually worked at Venmo as well, so he's got experience in this financial services space. And, I've been following along like what he's been doing in the NFT space for many, many months, and thought it'd be great to actually get him here today on the day that he's announced his new seed round.
Yeah, I didn't do this story today, Chris M, but it definitely got a lot of chatter in various circles today. So congrats.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. And Chris, yeah, it was so fun back in the day trying to figure out how to wire all of the apps together and just make something that was kind of delightful for users. And that was a really fun, actually for me, like a really awesome opportunity, because I'd been a fan of yours for quite a long time before that. And all of a sudden you weren't the person I was following on Twitter who invented the hashtag. You were someone that I got to have meetings with and do stuff with, which was super cool.
That's awesome. Well, again, congrats. I mean, this is a really big day for you. I know you've got some of the Floor NFT folks in the audience. If you want them to come up and also say hello, totally down with that. But, wanted to just kind of, I guess, start understanding like what drew you to the NFT space. Why are you excited about that? Why do you want to build there? I mean, again, I remember like in the button space, there was a lot of stuff around conversational commerce and voice controls and moving everything into kind of atomic intents that developers could build for. And so that's kind of where you were before. And I think that was a growing and explosive ecosystem for a while. And now you find yourself here kind of at the cusp of the Web3 revolution as it's happening.
Yeah, it's such a privilege to get to work here. I'll tell you the kind of ending, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how we got there. But I think it ties back to what you said, which is the reason we started Button, like foundationally, was that we saw mobile as a moment in time where it might be possible to challenge some of the prevailing market dynamics, which were basically sell eyeballs, take money, consumer is product. And we thought that in the explosion of mobile commerce and, the phone as the remote control for your life, that we could tie all that together in a way that could make contextual commerce kind of a prevailing business model. And in particular, make all of the apps on your phone composable and make them be able to interact with each other and build layers on top of them that make them do more for you together than they would do individually. And we all kind of know how it played out. That didn't happen. And it didn't happen because of business models. It didn't happen because inside of Web2, it was in the best interest of everyone to kind of silo their customers, keep them in, build walled gardens. And so the business of Button survived and thrived. But a lot of the original kind of ethos, I think, ended up, not being what we ended up being able to see through. And today in NFTs, what I see is not pictures of apes that people sell for tens of thousands of dollars, but rather new foundational constructs of identity and ownership that are truly composable, and an ecosystem that's in a stage that is actually interested in building in the open and together in a way that we may have a chance of stacking a few of these things on top of each other in a way that proves valuable before anyone basically tells you that you can't. And then on top of that, we have an imperfect but very powerful kind of customer including business model of tokenization that has proven that it is possible to do things that don't just sell your customers and let them participate. And I think when you put those things together, the version of the internet that we wanted to create for mobile, I feel like we're in a very similar moment today for Web3 with kind of composable tokenization, identity and ownership in the form of NFTs. But I think this time the deck is stacked kind of more in our favor, where previously, because it was the same companies, the same business models, the deck was incredibly stacked against us in terms of being able to do it. And that's why I'm excited about NFTs. That's why I'm building in NFTs. It's an amazing privilege.
I definitely appreciate that whole arc. It's obviously something that we had maybe hopes and dreams that would have, turned out slightly differently. And now here we are, and there's a lot of like hand wringing and kind of wanting to, reset the stage to some degree. Can you just tell us a little bit about like where Floor is now in terms of it being a product? I'd also love to hear you talk a little bit about your community engagement and how you've, issued NFTs. And I don't know if you've funded some of the development, but certainly I should disclose, purchased some of your early community NFTs. So I'm already in, I've aped in, so to speak. But we'd just love to sort of like, level set with the listeners. What is Floor? Like, what problem are you trying to solve? And how are you using your community to kind of co-develop or co-design what you're doing?
Yeah. And we were really excited. I remember when you bought your token, and I was like, yeah, Chris has a token. So I think there's a few foundational things. So starting at the very beginning, the problem is I'm a decently smart guy. I come from technology. I have a degree in computer science, and I've been deeply involved in crypto since 15, 16. And when it came to getting into NFTs, which was really just a thing I did out of FOMO, because I saw a ton of folks getting into it. It's like, oh man, I should really go check this out. I found it really hard first to like truly just get onboarded, then to kind of get deeper, then to understand the value of my assets, and then honestly to understand just like what the heck is going on. And so Floor was my response kind of as a builder to, hey, maybe I'm going to like try and see if I can make this a little bit better for myself in a way that maybe can make it better for some other people too. And so I posted back in September of last year, hey, I'm thinking about building something that solves this problem. And I think just got really, really lucky. And this original tweet set us kind of on a direction that we've lent into and taken advantage of. But, if we'd have posted about it, or I'd have posted about it and no one cared, I think that would have like led to one path. But the internet was really excited about the idea of this problem, or particularly like crypto Twitter and NFT Twitter was really excited about it. And so over the next 2-3 weeks, sorry, I have a lingering cough from COVID a few weeks ago. And so over the next 2 to 3 weeks, as we started building the very first thing, we just started building in public. We started talking to the community, talking to at the time, what were my Twitter followers, about, hey, like here's kind of the features we're thinking, and here's a screenshot of something that's like half done. And people responded really, really well. And at that point, we had a few thousand people who wanted access to the beta. And we weren't ready for a few thousand testers. And so I decided kind of on a whim, and honestly, I wish I could say it was a really well thought out plan. It kind of just happened, and a happy accident came together. Decided that we'd issue a small set of NFTs. They'd be relatively inexpensive, but side benefit, we could fund the project a little bit. And anyone who bought the NFT would be able to come in and be a tester. And while I was definitely building in public and excited about the engagement, I still had like a very Web 2 mindset as I was thinking about this, which is like, these people are going to be my testers. I'm going to make software. They're going to tell me how I'm doing. And so we welcomed 500 people, yourself included, in that first set of testers that we were thinking about them at the time. And they came in and we built a Discord and we started building together. And it literally took 2 days for us to realize that what we had was not a group of testers. It was a group of partners in building this thing. And they weren't just taking software and saying like, hey, this is broken, this is good, this is bad. They were sharing their ideas. And they had ideas of things that they wanted to do to help kind of progress the project. And so very quickly, we moved from being, a thing I was making and other people were using to a thing that we were doing together. And so over the 6 months, 7 months-ish, kind of since that happened, we released several other generations of tokens, have welcomed about 3,500 people into that community. That has funded kind of the earliest parts of the project. Obviously, building large-scale software to attack large problems is expensive. And so, that's why today we announced our $8 million seed round. But those first, $1.5 to $2 million was what really led us be in a position where we could bring people in and we could accelerate development and we could reinvest back in the community. And honestly, I had originally never intended for Floor to be anything but a side project. But between kind of it moving from a thing I was doing to a movement that a group of people were doing, and I just like kind of happened to be there with them, as well as getting deeper into the space and seeing kind of the depth of some of the trust and safety problems, but also the opportunity. And it honestly, as I started this, I originally got into NFTs because I was FOMO and I was interested in speculation. And it was somewhere along this journey that I realized that what we were really looking at was a new internet, was a new way of tokenizing, representing ownership, identity, all of those things. And that the things that we were going to be building infrastructure for in Floor were not pictures of animals in time, but were going to be those really important foundational constructs. And so when we realized that both people were really excited, we were really excited, and that the space and the opportunity is big, we decided to go and, make it our real jobs. And again, that's been a real crazy fun journey.
So one of the things that's obviously very interesting about like Web3 and these composable units that are out there in public, and available, thanks to the blockchain as an evolutionary, I guess, construct within building apps. I guess like what I'm wondering about is ultimately when it comes to your community, what you're describing sounds a lot like kind of like an open source project. And I mean, one, I don't think Floor is open source. And two, I suppose there's sort of an interesting dynamic here where you are providing a type of equity to the token buyers, or is it not equity, it's access? Like, help me understand how you ultimately think about those first 3,500 people or so who are bought in, who are helping out, who are contributing ideas. If you didn't have the same structure at Button, how do you make sure that your incentives are aligned with your community, considering you've now, taken in some, venture capital? I realize I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I think it's very interesting.
No, it's super interesting. It's something obviously we think about a lot. And so, if you think about the way a VC thinks about a future VC, essentially, future funding sets the value and like reinforces and validates the bet that you made earlier. And so the real kind of question is just what's the unit of consideration? In this case, these folks have come in and joined, and the NFT is, it's membership, it's access, and interestingly, it's liquid. So, there's been a ton of people that came in, used the app, decided they wanted the liquidity more than the app, and so they sold the NFT and they got their liquidity back. Today, every single person who's ever bought a token could sell their token for certainly more, in most cases, somewhere between 2x and 10x what they bought it for, depending on which token and when. And so the first and kind of most simple is the proven behavior that we've started to see is that the market prices NFTs as kind of some function of success and interest in the project. So, the Gen 1 token, which is the first set that we sent out, I think Chris is the one that you have, that token has kind of almost become a tracker on people's interest and the success of the project. And I hope not. Can you hear me?
I can still hear him, Chris. Yes.
No, my internet just went off.
All right,
no
Chris M. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one piece is the token price. Basically, project does good, token price goes up. Is not proven or guaranteed in any way, and certainly we don't guarantee it. But the market dynamic has sort of proved that plays out. The next broader question is, what does it mean to be a token holder versus what does it mean to be an app user? And so right now we're at this kind of fork in the road where we want to onboard 1 million people, 10 million people. And so that means, not having a $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 price of admission at the front door, but then we have this token holder community that has obviously paid to be there. And so we run these surveys pretty often around, how are you finding value in this? What's the most important thing about Floor today? And what we found over time is at the beginning, the primary value is the app. The only value is the app. And over time, that started to transition. And today it's actually transitioned to over more than half of people find the primary value in the access to alpha opportunity, trust and safety, discovery, and the partnerships that we drive inside of today our Discord, but ultimately inside of the product. And so as I kind of think about the future of these things, using the reach that we have from having a consumer product that has hundreds of thousands to millions of people, we use that leverage to go and make sure that we are in all the places that matter inside of NFTs, and we use that to drive value for the original token holders. And that can create a flywheel between those things where our app users actually get additional access because of the weight of the token holders. Token holders get early access because anyone who's building wants the distribution of the platform. And then we layer our trust and safety infrastructure on top of that to make sure that it's safe and no one's getting rugged and all of that kind of stuff.
I mean, so are you ultimately just like kind of competitive with OpenSea, or how do you position yourself in the market? Like, are you ultimately serving the NFT creators, generators, and sellers, or the buyers?
So fundamentally, our first purpose is to create the home for NFTs and a way for them to be understandable and accessible for consumers. So our first customer is the consumer. I think in order to do that, that does mean discovery and trust and safety. Both of those things involve project creators. We don't want to be a marketplace. And importantly, I think marketplaces are going to fragment massively inside of 2022 and certainly into 2023. And I think that the role of aggregator and kind of de-multiplexer of those things will be a really, really valuable place to be. And so just as you see like Coinbase and LooksRare and XBY2 and all those things kind of pop up, it's still kind of true that you can basically just care about OpenSea, but it's less true every day. I think as that happens, any of those players' individual ability to kind of create the home for NFTs gets degraded. And the home actually has to be multi-chain, multi-marketplace, as well as providing that kind of on-ramp and that understandability.
To what degree, though, we've just mentioned, or you mentioned Coinbase, and we're thinking about, you're saying you want 1 million users and things like that. To what degree are you thinking in terms of the widespread adoption of NFTs? I've been sitting in my head on an essay that maybe I'll do at some point about the my mom problem of the crypto and Web3 space. And to what degree are you thinking in terms of for whatever you might think of Coinbase? It was a lot of people's sort of on ramp to crypto. Are you thinking in terms of this being sort of a mainstreaming of NFTs for normies and folks like that?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about where we are right now is that you can onboard a whole lot of people before you have to start thinking about, people's mothers and grandmothers. Like we're so inaccessible today. And I actually think personally more about crossing the representation boundaries and the wealth boundaries than I think about crossing, the age and kind of tech savviness boundaries at some level. But I think what Coinbase did is Coinbase realized product market fit for crypto, which was the custodian stored buying of crypto assets for pure speculation. And I think when you have product market fit, you can create terminology and you can create user experiences and paradigms that make sense to that set of users to onboard them to that pretty simple concept. Coinbase is a marvel of user experience, but it's actually quite a simple thing. There's a list of coins and you can buy them and you can sell them. I think the challenge that NFTs have today is NFTs have product market fit for nothing except pretty rich people like buying expensive things and like signaling their wealth, or in the better cases, signaling their associations and their interests and their identity to the rest of the internet. And there are lots of things that are emerging and show promise, but NFTs have no product market fit. And really because NFT is a technology, it's not a product. And I think we'll see lots and lots and lots of products emerge on top of it. And I think the first one that I've really seen, or certainly the most recent one, that I think has a compelling argument for, okay, this is a use case that people can understand and therefore they might want it and therefore you can onboard them to it, is Steppen. I think Steppen had an explosion of onboarding because people understood what you were asking them to do and why they might want to do it. And so I'm actually...
Brian, are you familiar with Steppen?
Yeah, I am actually. Yes.
Okay. I think you might want to just provide a little context for that.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
So Stefan was, they coined themselves as kind of move to earn. So the idea was you bought an NFT and then very much like any other kind of step tracker, as you moved within some rules of the game, you'd earn tokens as you walked in the real world. And essentially,
we did a whole segment on it on the show. I think it was last week, both Chris's, but keep going. Yeah.
Nice. I love Stefan, and I don't know if Stefan wins or succeeds, but I do know that concept was simple enough, understandable enough, offered enough consumer benefit, and slotted into people's lives in a way that they were like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. And essentially it was creating an NFT as kind of a yield instrument, but then creating some rules and like some real world telemetry that turned that into a game that people actually wanted to play. And so as we think about making NFTs mainstream, there's a bunch of systematic problems that I think we can be part of solving, like trust and safety, discovery, onboarding, how does one self-custody, all of those things. But then I think we're also just looking for and waiting for and going to lean heavily into people making compelling use cases that actually matter to people. And as of right now, it's not our goal to go build those. We believe and trust that those things are happening, and I can think of a half dozen that I think show potential. It's possible that they don't happen in the time frame that we want, and who knows, maybe we even think about going and building some of those. But I think that kind of starts to address what you were saying, which is there's a lot that has to happen in order for this thing to become compelling to a mainstream audience from where we are today.
So given, if Stefan is one of the early examples of a, application of NFTs that you think, might have some broader appeal, what is it that Floor would do to support that project or to promote it, or would you not?
Yeah, so I think there's a kind of two ways of thinking about that. So one is for a Floor user, like how do you help them discover new things that they might be excited about? And I think that's like a pure kind of discovery algorithm recommendation kind of problem. The other that I think about a lot is I think there's a lot of people who are curious and a lot of people who dip their toe into Web3, into NFTs, but get immediately bit and don't know what to do and run away. And so I think Stefan gives you one step in. Oh, maybe that's a name. That's a good name. And then I think for someone like that, our goal would be, okay, how do we take a platform that's onboarded, call it 250,000 users, to the space and help them take that next step of exploration? Like, how do we be their branching out point in a way that's safe so that they can explore without getting their hands bitten and then run away and never come back? Because I think that happens a lot today. Or people get so afraid that's going to happen because they hear about it happening to others that they never even try.
Since warmer weather is almost here, let's make the most of it with Outer, the new outdoor furniture company with purposely designed furniture to get you outdoors more. Outer makes the world's most beautiful, comfortable, innovative, and high-quality outdoor furniture, all from sustainable materials, and is the only outdoor furniture with a patented built-in cover to make protecting it effortless. From teak chairs to fire pit tables, everything Outer makes has the look and feel of what you'd expect at a 5-star resort for less than you'd pay at a big box store for something that won't last. Outer's better in every way because they've spent years perfecting outdoor products with stunning modular designs to customize your space, life-proof material with a nano coating that's water, mold, bleach, and even stain resistant. And there are over 1,000 neighborhood showrooms across the country to see the Outer difference in person. I've gone into one of these showrooms virtually online, and I'm seriously about to pull the trigger on some furniture for my deck. See the difference at liveouter.com/techmeme. Plus, for a limited time, get $300 off and free shipping. This is Outer's best offer anywhere, only available to podcast listeners and only for a limited time. Get $300 off and free shipping at liveouter.com/techmeme. liveouter.com/techmeme. Terms and conditions apply. Work uninterrupted, run your business with less stress, and get more leads from your marketing efforts with Smith AI. Smith AI provides businesses with award-winning virtual receptionists who handle your calls, chats, and texts to unlock new business at a fraction of the cost of hiring an in-house staff. Smith AI is not your average receptionist service. Since 2015, they've combined the best receptionists across North America with AI technology for superior business communications and customer engagement. Their friendly and professional agents can screen leads using your custom criteria, schedule appointments on your calendar, and call back leads who complete your forms. They can do it all by phone 7 days a week and also on your website through their 24/7 live chat service. They even answer texts and Facebook messages. Smith AI pays for itself and then some. With all the new clients their receptionists help you win. Never miss another lead. Boost revenue, increase your focus at work, and keep your staffing costs down. It's as simple as forwarding your calls to Smith AI. Plans start at just $240 a month. Try Smith AI today. Our listeners will save $100 when you sign up using our promo code Techmeme at smith.ai. Visit smith.ai to read 5-star reviews and be sure to use our code Techmeme, Techmeme, to save $100 at sign up. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI.
Totally. Brian?
Yeah, listen, forgive me, Chris. I would ask this of basically any startup right now, but, specifically today I did a story about, NFTs, sales volume being down 75% or whatever. So like I would ask any startup in this current environment, but specifically anyone, working in, the crypto and Web3 space, If you're launching into a crypto winter, how are you thinking about that? I mean, the crypto winter could last and it could be over by July 4th or so. But what are you thinking about the current market environment that you guys are launching into?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I feel pretty lucky to have closed our round relatively soon before that happened. And I think selfishly, I think the dream of anyone, dream's a strong word. I think an advantageous situation for anyone who's building on a new, disruptive but open-ended technology is to get the opportunity to raise in a bull market and get the ability to build in a bear market. And so for us, speaking from a purely selfish kind of floor standpoint, we have the runway to last through, if we need to, almost anything that a reasonable bear market and a winter could look like. That's a couple of years. We can make that. And I have, and the team has, the resolution that we think that this thing is important enough that it is going to make it out the other side. Don't get me wrong. It's always more fun to build an environment where every day the numbers are going up, but that's awesome, and it does affect our engagement. The way that we think about that is, how is our engagement changing compared to the baseline of something like how is OpenSea sales data changing? And so what we see is the aspect of community that's built into the product and into kind of the overall offering means that our diminishment of engagement is like 30% of what the diminishment of engagement might be for an OpenSea, because there's other reasons to stick around. There are other aspects to the culture other than just kind of pure transactionality and the ability to make money there. I think that, the historical rhetoric is some of the most important things get built during the winter. And
totally.
I hope that we can be an example of that. But no, it could be a month, could be a year. Prepared for either.
And one more for you, Chris. And thanks so much for sharing your time, given this day. And I know that you did a Twitter space earlier. You're getting over COVID, all the rest.
Of course.
What have you sort of noticed about the New York tech scene in this moment? I think there's a lot of conversations about the center or the nucleus of tech kind of moving around and maybe not being based out of the Bay Area or Silicon Valley anymore. You're building what ostensibly could be a media technology platform or startup out of New York. What thoughts do you have about how that ecosystem has changed or evolved in the last several years, and sort of how does being in New York give you a advantage going forward?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I get this a lot right now with kind of the counter angle of, how does it feel that Miami is becoming this major tech hub, and in particular a crypto hub? And there definitely is an aspect of, people seem to like working in crypto and living in places with warm weather, particularly if there's kind of beneficial tax and crypto consideration benefits of being there. I think what we can all say is the Bay Area has no particular ownership or leadership in Web3, and that Web2 companies are still largely based there, largely out of legacy reasons. I think as workforces get more distributed and people get to live where they want to, not where they have to, I think all cities will lose some of their ownership of that, but certainly San Francisco and the Bay Area is. Honestly, like I've been building companies in New York for 9 years now. And I think, what I will say is maybe two thirds ish of our investors, over half, are either East Coast based or kind of distributed remote. And so like I remember back in the day, fundraising for Button, you go make your pilgrimage to Sand Hill Road and you like walk up and down, you like drop by all the venture firms. And I think that is very different today than it was 7 or 8 years ago. Like firstly, it's all remote, but secondly, I think a lot of those folks are distributed. There's a really great, strong crypto Web3 culture here. And I think it's because when you think about the two things that New York has always been strong at, just finance and technology, and where those two things meet, I think there's a pretty powerful opportunity. And so right now in Web3, it feels like New York and Miami are the two places. And no one's asked me to go to San Francisco in quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And with like Consensus and others, like, oddly, Brooklyn, specifically can, I'm speaking to you from Brooklyn right now, but, make a case for, Web3 sort of, I don't know, what's the, being the capital right now, but, yeah, love to hear that.
Totally. Well, Chris, once again, thanks so much for coming out, for joining us here. Brian and I are going to talk about his Mac Studio experience, but before you go, I mean, you're free to hang out as well. Where can people find Floor? Where can people follow you? Anything else you want to share to the Techmeme Ride Home audience?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. You can find me at Chris Madden on Twitter, and you can find Floor at Floor NFTs on Twitter. This is both a pleasure and honestly quite an honor to join you guys. I listen, so it's always cool to join things that you actually listen.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Chris. So, well, exciting stuff. Always good to sort of like hear from the founders who are like, building new apps, getting out there. And what I think is actually very interesting, having been part of that Floor community, sort of as a floater, perhaps, is just the approach with Web3 community building does feel different. It feels like it's more inclusive, more participatory. And also, I think customers just have a different idea about what they can ask for out of founders. So, I think it'll be interesting to see that pattern play out.
And speaking to the New York thing, I've told the story before about how I went to several early crypto meetups and things like that here in New York. I'm thinking specific. I think I told the story of the Doge one that we went to, and I feel like it was like 2013 or something. Because again, early on in crypto, New York is where the money is, like the money capital of the, and so, I think the story that I told is that, at the end of the event, it was down literally like 3 doors down from the stock exchange. And then the whole crew went and put, a Doge, sort of mask on the bull, the charging bulls thing on Wall Street or whatever. But I do think that that's an interesting case to be made, that, especially because now with NFTs, media is also here. So, I do think that, sure. I think that New York is a natural place for Web3 stuff. So, should we wrap by talking about the people?
Yeah, so, I feel like you've taken on some journey
Yeah.
You've been waiting for this Mac Studio.
And people have been yelling.
You've been excited about.
People have been yelling at me about not following through on that. So we can do that. But before I do, did you say, I thought I heard you say offhand recently, do you have a Mac Studio display?
I have an Apple Pro XDR display.
Okay, so it's not the most recent one.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mm-mm. No, the webcam or whatever? No.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, what I will say is the real thing that is the most applicable thing that's changed is because, since the Mac Studio doesn't come with a display unless you buy the Mac Studio display, I ended up getting a 38-inch wraparound LG monitor that Casey Newton recommended, by the way. Shout out to him for recommending this one. So that's kind of really what in my day-to-day driving, what has changed is that now I have this 38-inch display over here, and then I have one of my old, I guess it's a 28-inch
are you dual wielding then?
Yeah. Well, so by the way, what I'm doing now, because I kind of have to, is I'm wearing blue blockers all the time because otherwise, I'm just staring into
the abyss.
Well, just a blast. I'm staring into the sun.
Blue light.
Yeah. Okay, so the Mac Studio is I got the one with the Ultra or whatever it is chip. So it's the heavier one. It's the bigger one. The one with the extra cooling and all that. Everyone wants to know, okay, does the show process faster?
Yes.
And
does it actually live up to the hype?
Well, so it does, but it's not in a meaningful way, which everyone has to understand.
So what are you going from?
Right. Okay. This is what I wanted to say.
Ultra, whatever.
In the same way that we mentioned earlier with the, eventually I'll get a new MacBook Air, is all of my devices, all of my Macs were, pre Apple fucking up the Macs. So I'm coming from essentially 2015 and 2016 machines. So when it used to take, the show is only a 15-minute show. So when it used to take GarageBand, let's call it 2.5 minutes to process, it now does it in 30 seconds. So that's pretty good. Yeah.
Improvement.
Right. But it's not like, oh shit, it does it in 3 seconds. I don't know if I expected that.
I think your expectations might have been a little too.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think I expected that. Essentially the thing that is amazing and great is, well, actually, so think about the two things coming from a 2015 and 2016 device that are the biggest things are, I have an 8 terabyte SSD hard drive, right? So I'm coming from a Fusion drive where it was an SSD mixed with a Platter hard drive. And then
that's painful.
Well, but also the biggest thing is coming to USB-C and Thunderbolt as opposed to USB-A. Where, so Lisa and I both, because, Lisa has, her account on my Macs and things like that. So we would plug in the hard drives, the external hard drives that we bought to do this transition into the old machine. And it would take 4 or 5 hours to put your files on there.
Oh my God.
And then it takes less than 5 minutes when you plug it in to this thing with the USB-C.
The first time I switched over to an SSD on my M1 and transferred 5 gigabyte file or something.
Yeah.
It was so fast. Well, and it was like, oh my God, what I've been doing with my life.
Well, and more ports, because again, I'm coming from an iMac where there were 4 USB-A ports. So there are 6 USB-C / Thunderbolt ports, plus 2 USB-A ports, plus an SD card reader, and you've got the ports on the front. So it is, I've obliquely, made these jokes / sort of dragged Apple for this, but oh my God, they gave us ports back. They,
it's so much better.
They fixed the things. So, so it sounds like what I'm essentially saying is that, I just got a modern computer, which I am kind of saying.
It does kind of sound like that.
But here's what I'd say is I was trying to future-proof, which is what I did with these 2015 and 2016 things when, Apple started to fuck up their computers. I was like, I souped them both up, and I was like, this is going to last until Apple comes to their senses again. And that 100% worked out, to the point where apparently Mac OS is not going to support the old devices anymore. So my goal here with this machine is to last the better part of this decade. I'm going to throw something out there. I don't know if anyone can help me with this, but what I've also realized in consolidating my files, and then I do have a larger sort of philosophical point about this, but in theory, if I did get a MacBook Pro or something, I could clone this machine if I got a big enough hard drive on the MacBook Pro, and so my laptop and my desktop could be identical machines. And if anyone is listening, I don't know if you can make Time Machine make that work. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that obviously if
I'm trying to clone it. Wait, run this by me again.
Okay. So right now I'm sitting here at my desktop and I have everything set up beautifully. If I were to buy a MacBook Pro that, say, had a 3 terabyte hard drive, is it possible? This is what I'm asking. Does Time Machine work in the way that every time I plugged in?
The answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
And that to do what you want to do probably requires you to go all in iCloud. And anything that you want across your machines should be synced through iCloud or Dropbox or something like that.
Because what I'm dreaming of is, if I need to use my laptop, I can just quickly plug it into Time Machine, and it duplicates my desk. Okay.
No. One, that won't be fast, and 2, that's really not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially kind of a record of your machine as the machine state is, with the ability to roll back using the journaling function of the drive. And so the way that it does it is by saving diffs of the files. And so it's not sort of like you're syncing everything and it's just mirrored across both places. It's not how it works.
Well, so here's what I'm really going to do. Basically, the whole time I was writing the book and the whole time I started podcasting with the Internet History Podcast, my daily driver, my main machine was my laptop. And now that I'm mostly working from home, my main machine is this Mac Studio that I'm looking at. So what I think I'm probably going to do is just get the cheapest MacBook Air, and because
I think this is to the point that we were making earlier, where there's now these different products, at different price points, but there's starting to be some like seam removal, which maybe this is just Apple doing their self-cannibalization thing that they like to do. You will find that you'll start using these devices for specific purposes, and you'll have a bunch of them based on weight or based in form factor or based in pencil usage. And that is kind of how you will live in the Apple iCloud world, as opposed to trying to sync, one desktop computer to a portable laptop, and keeping things in sync that way. Like, once you embrace sort of cloud living, it becomes literally like all your stuff is kind of just in a cloud, and it kind of opportunistically syncs, and you just have to like lean into it. It's a very weird, uncomfortable feeling, but I think that's in your future based on what you're describing.
There are all different sizes of businesses. Big business, small business, that awkward growing phase business, the running this thing from my garage business, and the OMG we can't hire fast enough business. Wherever you are in your business journey, HubSpot's powerful but easy-to-use CRM platform grows with you. It lets all of your teams work together seamlessly, whether that's just you and your roommate or colleagues across multiple time zones. Grow better with HubSpot by connecting your people, your customers, and your business. Learn more at HubSpot.com.
It's pretty scary out there. Over $9 trillion has been erased from U.S. equities, and the NASDAQ 100 is down 25% year to date. Being greedy when others are fearful, as Warren Buffett taught us, is easier said than done. That's why the smartest investors know how to allocate to sell-offs with caution, using algo-based strategies to get back in the ring. But unless you can code, this type of quantitative investing has been out of reach until now. Composer.trade lets you invest like a quant. No engineering degree required. Their sleek, no-code super app is putting the power of quant in your portfolio, completely free to use. They have custom strategies that execute trades based on market conditions. Think tech has bottomed? Jump into big tech comeback. Think inflation is going to get worse? Dive into hot inflation summer hedge. Want to stay in stocks with more security? Try paired switching, S&P and gold. Composer.trade is the next generation of active investing. No code, no spreadsheets, no robos, and no YOLOs. Just smart investing for smart investors. To sign up for Composer and skip their 10,000-person waitlist, head to composer.trade/ride. That's composer.trade/ride. See disclaimers at composer.trade/disclaimer.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is part of my thinking, which is, why did I get an 8 terabyte hard drive? As we've discussed before, you know, I'm 1,200 episodes into the Techmeme Right Home podcast, and you know, raw GarageBand files are large.
Oh yeah.
Which again, you can buy a $50 external drive and back that stuff up and save that stuff. But I basically with this machine, all of our photos, all of my music, everything's on here now. And so the idea is that, again, hopefully by 2028, I can still have enough space and be using this machine. And that's also the super proofing, because what I got the Ultra, where probably the Max was really all I needed. But I'm hoping that, all of those, graphics cores and all of those cores full stop, will future-proof me for,
well, how much are you really using those cores?
I'm not right now, but that's my
generating the show.
But see, that's what I'm saying, is that I'm not right now. I'm hoping that
once you add the augmented reality
exactly
exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully I got enough cores and enough juice, that it'll take me, as far into this decade as we can get.
I mean, it sounds like the biggest improvement in your workflow was just getting a bigger display, right?
Well, essentially that. And by the way, I got to tell you, this is a great display. Again, it's designed for gaming, so it has a high refresh rate. But it is, after having used an iMac that has whatever the Apple branding is now, I can tell that it's not a Retina display anymore. Not that I can see pixels necessarily, but
I never be able to go back.
I can definitely tell the difference. So here's my philosophical take on this, which is, and this is sort of what you're alluding to, and we're sort of both chiding me about, is, I've told the story before about living in Detroit in the early 2000s and being the tech guy at a time when people were like, oh, but that's Brian the tech guy, right? As opposed to today when, Detroit is theoretically a tech town now. But one of the, we had this real cultural difference when we talk about things like Brian was the tech guy. And, I knew a lot of folks that they bought a new Mustang and they're like, Brian, come over and take a ride in my Mustang and see how amazing it is. Or, and I would do it and it would mean nothing to me. But the thing that I learned was, the way that certain types of people think of cars, where I get a new car and I feel different about my life. Look at what I can do now. I can go anywhere. I can do anything. I've realized that is how I've always been about gadgets and computers, where we're making fun of me because nothing's really changed, but I get this machine and I'm like, oh, what, Lisa, come in here. Look at what I can do now. And she's like, yeah, you could do that before. But it feels like that's my nerdery. And I'm not disparaging car nerds. I mean, I'm not disparaging nerds of any stripe, but I feel about a new clean device the same way that people feel like about a new car, where it's like, well, the sky's the limit now. I can do anything. My horizons have exploded, when really they haven't. But,
at the same time, though, I mean, going from an Intel chip to the M1 was revelatory. I'm sitting in my new shed now, and so the sun is beating in on my laptop, and this is the first time that I've heard the fan go off in like a year and a half or so. So the fact that it used to be just like de rigueur, the machine would get so hot and it would just like freak itself out all the time. And now I don't have to worry about that.
Oh, we should. Listen. I should be clear. I was getting the beach ball all the time recently with that old machine.
I don't get that anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, it was necessary. But here's the other thing, because I do this every 3 or 4 years with my phone too, where you just start from scratch. And that was purposely
ask you, did you do a clean slate?
Exactly. That was 100% also the point of this, because I'm pretty sure, I had been, installing from, a Time Machine backup, every time, for this desktop for the iMac. So essentially, I was using the same machine that was my first iMac back in 2008, right?
Oh my God.
Right. Because
so much craft.
Well, that's the point, is, that also makes you feel like, listen, this is what I'm copping to. The comedian Pete Holmes has a bit where he's like, I love it when a new iPhone comes out, 'cause I know I can't die until I get mine. Like he's making sort of like a, existential point of like, well, I'm not going to get hit by a bus tomorrow because I don't have my new iPhone yet. You know what I mean? Like, that's, that's part of what I've been experiencing, which is, all right, I'm making sure that I have every file that I need. I haven't traded in my old iMac yet. It's been sitting here for 2 weeks because I want to, give myself the chance to be like, oh, I forgot that file or whatever. But yes, starting fresh, having a bigger hard drive than I could possibly need right now, and feeling like, well, this chip can handle anything that I'll throw at it for the next 5 years, is part of that feeling of like, my life is sort of like not a clean slate, but like I'm starting fresh and new, and like people think when they get a new Mustang or something.
It's like, well, I know you haven't moved in a while, but the fact that I just moved into a new house, it's like the same thing. It's like,
oh, it's totally that. Oh, it's totally that.
Stuff I can install.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Like adult Roblox.
I tried to rationalize, my document file system and all that good stuff. So I would say this is not me coming here to be like, oh, the Mac Studio will, change your life. You should get one immediately, but, maybe just, it is a fun and healthy thing to do, to just get a clean computer every now and again, and feeling like you've put all your ducks in a row and your total life in order. Can I give you one, big complaint again, if anyone's listening that can help me with this? You want to know, and this is, people are going to think I'm a giant asshole more than they already do, that I spent all this money and I'm going to have this problem. But so think about it. It's not an integrated display anymore. I can't control where the sound is coming from, because I don't know.
What do you mean?
Okay. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Apple doesn't conform to that sort of whatever the standard is that allows you to control the sound on a different device. So, okay. By default, the sound comes out of the crappy, I didn't even know the Mac Studio has speakers, but it does, right? But so then I try to shift the sound to my 38-inch screen, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But also, I can't mute or control the volume on the keyboard. I have to literally reach under the screen to control oh yeah.
No way.
Now, and then the thing that I've been encountering is that then I have this side monitor over here, and even if I mute everything that I can think of, this morning, messages, the little chimes from, you got a new message from Chris Messina or from your wife, it was coming in on my side monitor, and I couldn't turn that off. So, okay, I spent all this money, and because I don't have an integrated display with this machine, I'm having a hard time controlling where the sound is coming from.
I think it's possible. I don't want to speak out of turn because, LG is a totally different thing. But there are some controls. If you hold down Option, maybe, and you click on the speaker, you might be able to make some changes. I will agree with you, though. There are some problems, and controlling the sound is hard, especially because AirPlay wants to be able to play your audio in all sorts of wireless.
It wants me to play it on the Apple TV downstairs. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they've changed a lot of that plumbing, and I think as a result, that's possibly why you're struggling a little bit.
I also, there's before people at me, there are apps to control this sort of thing. The problem is that most of them are not updated for Apple Silicon. So, but I can't think of offhand the name that the app that everyone uses to handle this problem.
It's a Rogue Amoeba. They have a bunch of products in the space. In fact, that's what I'm using to record this episode. I'm using Audio Hijack. They have a number of tools, or at least one, that will allow you to control your audio and set it up however you want. And that, I think, is actually updated to Apple Silicon. Definitely check it out.
Okay. Well, so see, there you go. This is why I have a podcast, so that people can tell me
problems.
Yeah, how to fix things. Yeah, that's it. I'm happy with it. And it's been fun to do it. And my daughter wants the old iMac off of her desk. So I hopefully will get my Apple trade-in giant box. I've done that a couple times. Have you ever done that where
I've only done it with the phone.
Oh no, see, I've done this twice with iMacs where they will send you a gigantic box. And then the last time I did it, I was already living in Brooklyn, and I had to walk down the slope to the post office down on Fifth Avenue with my giant iMac in a box. So I walked the better part of a mile down there.
That's painful.
But hey, you can do it. It's not like I have to put a giant 28-inch screen in the trash, but
True. Okay, well, I sent you the link to an app that you should try. It's called Sound Source, and that one might be the one that you want. I'll actually pin to the space as well. I also pinned the animation of the speed of how fast. When I actually got an external SSD with a comparison with what it was before, and you can take a look. You'll see how much better it is.
Well, anything that'll solve my problem would be great. Actually, you know what? Weirdly, the solution is if you just wear your AirPods all day long, that takes over the sound, and then it doesn't even matter.
All the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. So, thank you for listening to my Mac Studio journey. I'm sorry if it was not as, I feel like everyone was like, oh, you're going to tell us that, it's cut a half an hour out of your, podcast production time, and it hasn't, but, I don't know. Like I said, this is why we're geeks, is, it makes us feel good to do weird things like this.
Well, so, I mean, save yourself 2 to 5 minutes a day, over the next 1,000 episodes, it'll save you a good amount of time.
That's true. When you're doing 1,000 of anything, it does, it does make a difference.
That's so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, awesome. I'm looking forward to, other people's reactions to WWDC as the stuff comes out. I'm very curious if my, of course, conspiracy theories play out. We'll see. But and the show is going to come out on Saturday.
Indeed. And thank you to our other Chris guests. We're having too many Chris's on recently.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like a circular problem. It keeps coming back around.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. I think I've gotten in the habit of saying I love everyone recently, so I'm going to say that again.
You did see that once.
I love everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Later.
Thanks, everybody. See you guys next time.